I begged my older brother to come on a family vacation so we could feel like a family again. I paid for everything, booked the most beautiful place I could find, and even invited my best friend so he wouldn't feel outnumbered. I thought I was saving what was left of us. I didn't know I was funding my own heartbreak. Before I continue, make sure you subscribe, tap like, and tell us in the comments where you're watching from, because this is a story about love, loss, and the kind of betrayal that steals your breath before you can even scream. We lost our parents when I was 15. One quiet morning turned into a siren, a phone call, a world that split down the middle and never sealed right. After the funeral, people hugged me like I was made of glass and told me to lean on family. Family, in my case, meant Jason, 3 years older, suddenly a guardian with textbooks under one arm and bank statements under the other. He didn't know how to be a father. He just decided he would try. And I let him. I needed him. I still remember the first week after the funeral when I couldn't get out of bed. He made eggs that were rubbery and too salty and told me they were gourmet. I ate every bite and pretended I believed him. He waited outside my classes after school even when I told him not to. He yelled at my guidance counselor when I failed algebra. He never let me walk home alone. For years I built my center around those moments. The brother who showed up, who filled in the empty spaces of a mother and father with stubborn love and clumsy protection. I patterned my whole life on the certainty that if I called, he'd answer. But grief is a long road with exits you don't notice you've taken until you're miles away. Somewhere after I turned 20, Jason took an exit I didn't see. He got busier. Work, promotions, the kind of meetings you can't miss, late nights that stretched into weekends. The phone calls got shorter. The "can we reschedule?" texts stacked up like receipts. I told myself it was normal. People grow up. Schedules change. Love stays. Except sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes love sits in a car with the engine running, and when you reach for the handle, the driver is already down the block. I coped by planning. Some people fix their pain with therapy. I fix mine with itineraries. The first time I booked a getaway, it was a cheap lake cabin with a suspiciously cheerful listing and a couch that smelled like lemon cleaner and dust. Jason showed up late on Friday night and left before breakfast on Sunday, but for those few hours in the middle, it felt like before. He laughed at my terrible marshmallow technique and told me I'd ruin the s'mores. I didn't care. He was there. Being there was enough. It became my thing, family trips. It didn't matter that our family was down to 2. I found places with big porches and quiet docks and fireplaces we didn't need but lit anyway. I made spreadsheets, costs, groceries, routes, check-in codes, because spreadsheets made the world behave. I told Jason not to worry about the money. "I've got it," I'd say, like it didn't sting that I had to buy my way into his calendar. He always promised to Venmo me something later. He never did. I told myself it was fine. He'd done enough. He'd held our life together once. I could hold this part. Then he started to take advantage. Not at first. It began like easing a door closed with your hip. Soft, casual, almost an accident. He'd say, "Can we do a nicer place this time? Closer to the water." He'd send a link to a resort with floor-to-ceiling windows and a pool that glowed like a promise in the dark. "We deserve it," he'd add, and I'd nod even though he couldn't see me. When the invoice arrived, he'd say work was messy and payday was late and life was expensive. I'd pay. We'd go. We'd take a photo on the dock at sunset and text it to relatives so they'd stop worrying. But the imbalance grew legs and learned how to run. Jason started skipping entire trips, canceling the night before with apologies that sounded more like instructions. "Rain check. I swear I'll make it up to you. Book something even better next time. Somewhere with real beds and good coffee." Then 1 month turned into 2, 2 into 4, and I woke up realizing I hadn't seen my brother outside of a restaurant check in almost a year. I wasn't angry yet, just afraid. Afraid that memories evaporate if you don't refill them. Afraid that the person who saved you once could disappear and take your past with them. So I planned the best trip yet. It was my idea, but I pitched it like a rescue line. 2 bedrooms right on the lake, private dock, fire pit, a kitchen that actually works, 5 nights. I'll handle it all. Just show up. I sent photos of the cabin. No, call it what it was, a small glass palace shaped like a cabin. The kind of place where the sun came in like a rumor and everything, wood, stone, water, had the sheen of a magazine spread. I put down the deposit without flinching. My chest hurt but my hands were steady. Say yes, I typed. He sent a thumbs up emoji. Then, can we invite someone else? You know, so it's not just the two of us. The message knocked something loose in me. Not just the two of us. As if the two of us were a burden to bear. As if the memory of who we had been was too heavy to lift alone. I swallowed, stared at the blinking cursor and lied to myself. Sure, I wrote. Who were you thinking? He typed, paused, typed again. The bubble pulsed like a heartbeat. Maybe Lily, he said. My best friend. The world went quiet. The memory of lily-colored nail polish and late-night phone calls and teenage promises crowded my screen. Lily had been with me since middle school, an orbiting presence who never drifted too far. She'd seen me lose my parents, lose my appetite, lose sleep. She'd sat on the floor with me the night I turned 18 and said, "We made it. We actually made it." She wasn't family by blood. She was the girl you call when you need to be told the truth gently. Invite her, Jason wrote, and then, because my brother always knew which lever to pull, it'll be more fun for you. More fun for me. Right. Lily and Jason got along in that breezy way good-looking people do when the room is on their side. I'd never noticed any heat there, no crackle in the air, no secret glances. But something in Jason's suggestion scraped me the wrong way. I ignored it. I told myself a third person meant less pressure, more laughter, another witness to the proof that we were still a family. I texted Lily and she answered like she always did. Instantly, enthusiastically loyal. Are you sure? She asked. Won't Jason want it to be sibling time? He suggested it, I said. Really? Pause. Great. I'll clear my schedule. I sent her the cabin photos, a list of what to pack, the schedule I was pretending not to write. She sent too many heart emojis. I sent a smile. Felt like fastening a seatbelt in turbulence, useless, but you do it anyway. In the days before the trip, Jason became available. It was a strange inversion, the way attention follows an audience. He replied to texts within the hour. He sent playlists. He asked if Lily liked kayaking or paddleboarding, if she had allergies, if she was good with dogs, because the cabin allowed them and we might see some on the trail. He asked which room she'd prefer. He asked me to send her the Wi-Fi code in advance so she wouldn't have to ask when she arrived. She hates awkward moments. I smiled at my phone and hated that I smiled. I was grateful he was engaged, annoyed that I was grateful, and impressed despite myself by his sudden thoughtfulness. This is what I'd wanted, wasn't it? For Jason to care enough to show up? I wasn't going to ruin it by overthinking. The morning we left, the sky was the kind of blue that looks like it costs money. I picked Lily up first. She came out with a weekend bag she'd overpacked and a sweater that made her eyes brighter. She hugged me like she always had, cheek pressed, eyes closed, no space for doubt, and my bad feeling loosened its knot. We swung by Jason's place second. He kept us waiting just long enough to make an entrance. When he came down the steps, he looked like a boy who'd grown into a suit he never took off. His smile was slow, edges curled, practiced. He hugged me one-armed and lifted Lily's bag into the trunk with the other. Chauffeur Claudia, he announced, slipping into the passenger seat. You're the best. You owe her gas money, Lily teased from the back. She knows I'm good for it, he said, not looking at me. We played his playlist. We laughed at old stories. We stopped for coffee at a place with plants in the ceiling and a barista who wrote our names in cursive on the cups. If you had driven by our car that morning, you would have thought we were ordinary. You would have heard the sing-along and the inside jokes and the warm rise and fall of people who know how the others like their coffee and believed us when we said family trip. The cabin was even more beautiful than the photos. It stood on stilts over the shallows, all clean glass and warm wood, with a porch that wrapped around like a hug. The water below had the stillness of a breath held. Inside everything was new, the knives in a row like silver soldiers, the sheets crisp, the soap smelling like expensive trees. I carried in bags, lined up groceries, counted towels, and pretended I wasn't tallying who had thanked me and who hadn't. Jason disappeared to check the Wi-Fi. Lily took photos of the light on the floor and said it was like stepping into a different life. That first evening we grilled on the deck. Jason stood at the barbecue like he'd graduated from some invisible school for men who flip meat and make eye contact at the same time. Lily laughed at every joke he told, which annoyed me until I realized she laughed at mine too. We ate with our hands and our sleeves pushed up and watched the sky move through its colors. When the stars came out, I felt the old hope again, the kind that says things might be alright if you just keep feeding them. Later, while I labeled the fridge shelves, judge me if you want, Jason joined Lily on the couch with a map of the lake. He sat too close for strangers, just right for friends, and pointed to places I'd already marked. We should go there, he said. Or there. His voice was soft in a way he rarely used with me anymore. It wasn't the softness that calms. It was the softness that sells. I told myself I was projecting. I told myself I was tired. I told myself for the 1000th time not to ruin this. The next morning came bright and grateful. I made coffee before anyone else woke up and took mine out to the dock. The lake looked like glass someone breathed on. If I squinted, I could pretend our parents were inside, packing for a day on the water, calling us to put on sunscreen and stop splashing and wear a hat for once. The breeze lifted a strand of hair and laid it down gently, like even the wind was trying to be kind. Jason joined me later, barefoot, yawning. He wasn't a morning person, but he looked boyish in that light, less armor, more skin. He bumped my shoulder with his and said, "Good pick, Claude." I swallowed a bunch of feelings and kept my voice even. "Thanks." He stared out at the lake for a long time. "You know," he said, "I'm glad Lily's here. You two have fun together. Takes the pressure off." Pressure. The word sat in my chest like a stone. Pressure to what? I asked. He shrugged. Be everything. I looked at him like he'd confessed something and then swallowed it. You don't have to be everything, I said. You never did. He didn't answer. He just kicked the dock post idly with his heel and changed the subject. We spent the afternoon on the water. Lily squealed when the kayak tilted even a little. Jason teased her gently and told her she was brave. He paddled beside her like a shadow that knew where she would drift before she did. I pulled ahead and tried not to stare. When we came back, sunburned and hungry, I made sandwiches and put chips in a bowl big enough for a party of 10. Lily put her wet hair up and wore one of my sweatshirts. Jason took a photo of us on the deck and sent it to a group chat with the caption, "Family time." My phone buzzed with hearts from relatives. I put it face down on the table. That evening, a small wrongness began to sharpen into shape. Jason insisted Lily take the bedroom with the better view because she's the guest. He volunteered to show her how the thermostat worked. He volunteered to take out the trash at exactly the moment I asked Lily to help with the dishes. He asked me if I could run back into town for more charcoal because the bag we had looked low. I pointed out that we had plenty. He smiled and admitted he just didn't feel like leaving this vibe. It would have been nothing if it wasn't everything. I told myself to stop being suspicious. I told myself my brother has a right to be charming and my best friend has a right to enjoy it, and I have a right to breathe without counting the ways I might be wrong. After dinner, Lily asked if I wanted to watch a movie. I said I had a headache and needed a shower. Start something without me, I said. She pouted, sweet and small. Not fun without you. I smiled and went upstairs. Half an hour later, wrapped in a towel and a robe, I stood at the sink and stared at myself. I looked like the nicest version of a tired person. The robe was plush. The mirror was flawless. The girl looking back had a softness I didn't trust. I brushed my hair until it obeyed, then tied it up. When I opened the door to go to bed, I realized I'd left my water bottle downstairs. Nothing dramatic. No storm, no omen. Just thirst. The house was quiet when I came down. The glow from the living room spilled across the floor in a soft rectangle. I could hear a movie's low murmur. I could hear Jason's laugh, low and meant to be private. I could hear Lily whisper something back in the kind of silence that comes after a look, not a word. My hand rested on the back of the couch. You guys still up? I said, keeping it light. I waited for the movie to pause, for someone to call out, yeah, join us, for the ordinary magic of a normal night to save me. No one answered. The kitchen was colder than the rest of the house. I filled my bottle slowly, as if a longer stream of water might unclench my chest. I told myself to go to bed. I told myself not to be the jealous sister, the paranoid friend, the girl who ruins her own night because she lives inside questions that haven't been asked yet. On my way back to the stairs, I passed Jason's hallway. The light in his room was on. The door wasn't shut. It was just shy of shut, like a mouth that almost decides to keep a secret. I stopped. I don't know how long I stood there, holding my breath like a child in a game of hide and seek. Somewhere in the living room, the movie continued without us. Somewhere above my head, the house creaked the way houses do when they settle. Somewhere behind that not quite closed door, something shifted. Trust is a door mine had always opened for Jason. For years I walked through it without looking. That night I stared at the gap and felt a cold wind come through. Claudia. Lily's voice floated from the living room. Too bright, too late. Did you go upstairs? Yeah, I called back, my tone normal, my heart not. Just grabbing water. Silence. I took one slow step toward the door. Then another. The lake outside was a mirror for a sky I couldn't see. In the glass of the hallway window my reflection paused, small and certain and dressed in softness I no longer trusted. I reached out for the edge of the door with the same hand I'd used 100 times before to knock, to ask for help, to say, "Jason, are you awake?" My fingers touched the wood. And I realized I didn't know who I was about to find on the other side. I didn't kick the door open. I didn't scream. I just nudged it with 2 fingers and let the truth come to me. The hinge sighed. The light inside was low. Too warm for a bedroom you sleep in, just bright enough for a scene you don't want anyone to see. The world narrowed to 3 things. The edge of the door under my hand, the cold floor against my bare feet, and the sound of whispering that stopped the second they realized the door wasn't as closed as they thought. Jason. My voice came out steady, almost kind. It shouldn't have been. For a heartbeat nothing moved. Then sheets rustled. A shadow jerked. A familiar hand went searching for a lamp that didn't need finding. And there, in the space between denial and proof, I saw enough. Lily's hair on Jason's pillow. Jason's arm where a brother's arm never belongs. Both of their eyes wide and wrong and human. Time didn't slow down, it sharpened. I could hear the clock in the kitchen, the movie still running on low in the living room, the soft hum of the fridge, the lake pushing itself in small, polite waves against the stilts under the house. I could hear my own breath refuse to enter my chest. Claudia. Lily said my name like a plea, a prayer, a mistake. I stepped back first. That's the part that surprises me when I remember it. I moved away from them. Away from the proof. Away from the version of my life that had just died on my brother's bed. Jason sat up too fast, sheet falling to his waist, face blown open by a look I'd only ever seen in other people's panic. This isn't. Claudia, listen. I didn't want to listen. I didn't want words. Words are what people use to decorate disaster. I reached for the door and pulled it toward me. He stood. Lily made a sound that wasn't a word. The door was almost shut when Jason said the one thing he shouldn't have said. It wasn't about you. I stopped. The door stopped with me, a palm's width from shutting. I stared at the wood grain until the lines blurred. When I spoke, my voice came from somewhere I didn't know existed. Everything you do to me is about me. Silence. The kind that fills a room like smoke. I closed the door. I didn't slam it. Slamming is what people do when they want to be heard. I wanted to disappear. The hallway felt longer than it had an hour ago. I walked it on autopilot, past the window where the lake reflected a sky I couldn't see, past the couch where the movie asked a question no one would answer. Upstairs, the loft waited with its neat beds and folded blankets and the sweatshirt Lily had borrowed and left on the chair like a person. I sat on my mattress and held on to the edges because the room was tilting. I didn't cry right away. I thought I would, thought the tears would rush up and drown me, but I just sat. My hands shook, so I tucked them under my thighs. My breath came in shallow sips, so I counted to 5 and back again. Somewhere below, 2 people I loved were deciding what story to tell themselves to survive this. I was deciding whether to fall apart now or later. Later, I decided. I'd fall apart later. The house whispered in the ways houses do. The tick of wood, the soft click of cooling metal, the sigh of the air system doing its best. Footsteps padded up the stairs, paused, retreated. A door closed. Another opened. Then the slow, careful climb of Lily coming back to the loft like a thief returning something she'd already spent. I lay down on my side and turned my face to the wall. My eyes burned but stayed dry, a betrayal my own body joined. Lily's mattress dipped. She didn't speak. For years she'd known exactly when to talk and when to stick a hand under the blanket and find mine. Now she pretended to sleep because there was nothing left to say that wouldn't make it worse. I stayed awake until the sky softened. I watched the square of light move across the floorboards and up the wall like time-changing rooms. At somewhere between night and morning I blinked, and when I opened my eyes again, the world was pale and unforgiving. Downstairs I could smell coffee. I heard Jason's voice, too normal, and Mom's hum that meant she was happy without knowing why. The cabin had reset itself as if the night had been a glitch it could patch. I washed my face until my skin stung, braided my hair like armor and went down. The kitchen looked like a commercial for mornings. Steam rose from mugs. Plates waited. The lake threw sunlight at the windows and made the whole place look blessed. Jason stood at the stove flipping pancakes, a performance he put on twice a year to prove he was domestic. He glanced up when I walked in. The smallest flinch crossed his face and disappeared. "Sleep?" he asked as if the word could be neutral again. "Not really." My voice wasn't mine. It was smoother, thinner. Something you pour and spill and wipe up before it stains. Lily came in a moment later, cheeks too pink, sleeves too long. She took the stool beside mine and said, "Morning," in the voice she uses for strangers and cashiers in the first day of class. Jason slid a pancake onto her plate like a peace offering, like a bribe. She didn't look at him. She didn't look at me. We ate. The three of us chewed like our jaws were new and had come with instructions we'd forgotten to read. I tasted nothing. The syrup could have been water, the coffee sand. Outside, a fisherman cut a quiet line across the lake, the kind of story you want to live in if you don't know how to live in your own. "Kayaks again today?" Jason said, way too bright. "I'm tired," I said. "We could rent bikes," he tried. "I'm tired." Lily cleared her throat. "We could." I said, "I'm tired." The words came sharp. She flinched, then nodded like I'd asked her a reasonable question and she'd agreed to the terms. Silence again. My pulse ticked in my wrists. I took my mug to the sink and stood there until the water ran cold and my hands did too. Back on the deck, the sun found my face and asked me to pick a feeling. I chose none. I watched the boats, I counted birds. I heard the screen door slide and not slide closed, Jason's habit. He came to my shoulder and leaned on the railing like he used to when we were kids, and he wanted to tell me bad news gently. "I'm sorry," he said. It was the worst thing he could have led with. "For what?" I asked without looking. "For this morning? Or for last night? Or for the years where I asked you to show up and you made me pay for the privilege?" He exhaled through his nose, slow. "It wasn't supposed to happen. So it did." I finally turned. "On purpose." He shook his head. "Not at first. We were just talking." "Brother-sister conversation?" I tilted my head. "That kind." He winced. "The truth makes its own weather." "Claudia." "Don't say my name like that," I said quietly. "Like you still get to use it." Something ugly flashed across his face. Pride, embarrassment, anger, all the colors that come after being caught. "You think everything is about you." I almost laughed. This was literally about me. "You suggested I invite her. You let me pay for the stage where you perform. You asked for the nicer place because you knew I'd say yes. You turned our grief into a reservation and a playlist." He gripped the railing. "You're twisting it." "No," I said. "I'm untwisting it." He didn't answer. He stared at the water as if it would vote for him. Behind us, the door slid again. Lily stepped out, soft footfalls, small throat clear. "Can we talk?" she asked, brave in the way people are when they've already taken what they came for. I looked at her like I was meeting her for the first time and decided not to invite her in. "Talk to who? Me? Or him?" "Both," she whispered. "No," I shook my head once. "Not both." Jason straightened. "We're not doing a trial." "You're right," I said. "Trials have rules." Lily's eyes shone. "I never meant to hurt you." "You did." I let the words sit. They were heavy and true and didn't need decoration. "You did it in my brother's bed in a house I paid for on a trip I begged him to take so we could feel like a family again." I swallowed. "You were my family too. Once." She covered her mouth like she could push the tears back in. "I hate myself." "Don't," I said. "Hating yourself is just another way to think only about yourself." She nodded, cheeks wet. For a second, one small second, I saw the friend who had slept on my floor when thunder scared me, who had brought cake when my job went wrong, who had braided my hair in the hospital lobby without asking why. Then the second was over. The person in front of me was the girl who had chosen the wrong door and closed it behind her. "I'm going for a walk," I said, stepping past them. "Claude," Jason started. "Don't," I said again and kept moving. The path around the lake pretended to be simple. Gravel, shade, the smell of pine and sunscreen, a breeze that tried its best to restart me. I passed couples who looked like postcards and kids who didn't know yet that the world could split. I let my feet pick a speed and asked my body to carry the weight my heart couldn't lift. Halfway around, I sat on a rock and took inventory. I had lost my parents young. I had built a god out of my brother and lit candles to it every time he texted back. I had stacked my faith in Lily like books on a shelf. Well-thumbed, familiar, my favorite comfort in a storm. And now I had to pull all of it down without letting the whole house fall. I took my phone out and opened a note. I typed 3 sentences and deleted them. I typed 3 more and kept them. You don't need witnesses to the truth. Don't set yourself on fire to warm people who watch. Decide what you want to be true tomorrow, not what you wish were true yesterday. The walk back felt shorter. Lies make distances longer than they are. Choices bring them back to size. When I stepped onto the porch again, the cabin sat as neatly as I'd left it. Inside, the living room had been tidied, the movie back to the home screen, blankets folded, remotes lined up like soldiers. Guilt cleans like that. In the kitchen, Jason leaned on the counter, jaw tight. Lily stood by the window looking like a portrait called regret. We're checking out early, I said. They both looked up. I booked it, I continued. I can end it. Jason frowned. Don't be dramatic. I smiled without humor. It's not drama. It's logistics. Lily's voice trembled. Where will you go? Home, I said. Away. Anywhere that doesn't echo with last night. Jason took a step forward. You can't just. I can, I said, and this time the steadiness in my voice didn't surprise me. And I will. Lily tried again. Can we fix anything? No, I said gently, because some truths deserve softness. You can't fix a vase by pretending it was never dropped. They didn't move. They didn't apologize again. There are only so many times you can say, sorry, before it becomes a word you try on instead of a thing you do. I went upstairs and packed. It didn't take long. Grief travels light when it has to. When I came down with my bag, Lily blocked the bottom step like a question. Please, she whispered. Tell me what to do. Leave me alone, I said. That's the first thing. She nodded and stepped aside. At the door, Jason said, You're overreacting. I paused, hand on the handle, and looked back at the boy who once stood at the end of our driveway and swore he'd never let anything hurt me. No, I told him. I'm finally reacting. Outside, the sun was high and honest. I set my bag in the car, climbed in, and sat with my hands on the wheel until my breathing matched the tick of the engine. I didn't cry on the drive. Not because I was strong, but because my body was busy moving me away from the fire. Only when the cabin disappeared in the rear view, glass and water and the outline of the life I couldn't save, did I allow one thought to finish its shape. This isn't the end of what they did. It's the beginning of what I'm going to do. When someone betrays you, it doesn't happen once. It happens again every time you remember the way they used to love you. The highway blurred. Not from speed, I wasn't even driving fast, but from the weight pressing against the inside of my chest. My hands were steady on the wheel, but my mind was back at 15, standing in the dark of our old kitchen after Mom and Dad's funeral, listening to Jason promise me he would never let me feel alone. And I had believed him. I believed him when he walked me through paperwork I didn't understand, when he showed up to my school conference in Dad's tie, when he bought groceries with money I didn't know how to stretch. I believed him every time he leaned down and said, You've still got me, kid. That voice was the only one I trusted to steady me. And last night it was the voice that said, It wasn't about you. I pulled into a rest stop and cut the engine. The silence roared. People walked past me, families in bright shorts, kids holding melting ice cream, a couple laughing at something only they knew. It all looked like another planet. My car was a capsule floating between the before and the after. I dropped my forehead against the steering wheel. Finally, the tears came, violent and unstoppable, as if my body had been waiting for me to stop moving so it could break. My sobs fogged the glass, and I didn't care if strangers saw. What did it matter? The person who should have cared most had just sold me out for convenience and desire. When it was done, I wiped my face on my sleeve, checked the mirror, and almost laughed at how ruined I looked. Lily used to tease me about cry face, about how my nose went red before my eyes did. She knew that. She knew me. And still she chose him. I bought coffee, sat on a bench outside the gas station, and let the cup warm my hands. My phone buzzed with a text. Jason, We should talk before you do something rash. Lily, I'm so sorry. Please don't hate me. I didn't answer either. Silence was my answer. Instead, I opened my photos. Scroll back. Birthday candles with Jason beside me, his arm draped around my shoulders. Summer pictures of Lily in sunglasses holding my hand. All these snapshots like evidence in a case I never wanted to try. I deleted none of them. Deleting would have felt like pretending. And I wasn't pretending anymore. Back home, the apartment felt smaller than usual, like betrayal had followed me inside and sat heavy on the couch. I left my bag by the door and paced, restless, haunted by echoes. Everywhere I turned, I remembered Jason filling the fridge when I couldn't. Jason warning me about bad boyfriends. Jason telling me I deserved better. And Lily, my mirror, my second voice, finishing my sentences, sleeping over on anniversaries I couldn't face alone. They had been my anchors. And now they were the storm. I curled on the bed, hugging a pillow until my arms ached. Grief for my parents had been sharp and loud. This grief was quieter, crueler. It whispered, maybe you never really had anyone at all. Hours passed like that, heavy and slow. Evening light crawled across the floor, mocking me with how steady it was. Then something shifted. Maybe it was the way my phone kept lighting up with Jason's name. Maybe it was how small my apartment felt compared to the size of my pain. Maybe it was simply this. I realized that if I kept lying here, I'd never get up. So I sat. I breathed. And I opened a blank notebook. I wrote one sentence at the top of the page. You don't get to define me. It was shaky, messy ink. But it was mine. The rest of the page I filled with memories. The good ones, the ones that made me ache. Not to keep them safe. No, they were already poisoned, but to drain them out of me. To pin them down on paper so they couldn't haunt me in flashes anymore. Jason holding my hand at the hospital. Lily braiding my hair before prom. Jason teaching me to drive. Lily painting my nails while I cried about college rejections. Line after line until my hand cramped. Until the page was black with names and gestures that no longer belonged to me. Until I felt emptied out. When I closed the notebook, something inside me felt steadier. Not healed, not even close, but awake. I wasn't ready to forgive. I wasn't ready to confront. But I knew this much. I wasn't going to collapse into silence while Jason told himself he was still the hero and Lily told herself she was still my friend. They had written their part of the story. Now it was my turn. And I was going to make sure the ending didn't belong to them. You can only run from betrayal for so long. Eventually, it knocks on your door, still smelling like the bed you found it in. A week passed. A week of silence that wasn't silent at all, because every vibration of my phone carried their names. Jason called every night, sometimes twice, sometimes more. Lily sent paragraphs, then one-line apologies, then desperate, please just answer. I didn't. Not once. But ignoring them didn't erase the ache. It didn't erase the rage either. Rage doesn't stay buried, it ferments. By the end of that week, it had bubbled up into something that demanded air. The final straw was a knock at my door. I opened it thinking it was the delivery I'd ordered. It wasn't. Jason stood there, looking too casual in jeans and a jacket like he hadn't been ripping my life apart piece by piece. And behind him, Lily, pale, her eyes ringed with sleepless nights. I froze, my hand still gripping the knob. No. Jason raised his palms. Claudia, wait. Please. Just 5 minutes. That's all we're asking. I didn't ask you to come. You wouldn't answer, Lily whispered. We had to. Had to. My laugh came out sharp. You had to drive across town to stand on the doormat of the girl you both betrayed? You had to breathe my air again. Jason glanced at the hallway, lowered his voice like I was the one embarrassing us. Claudia, don't make a scene. Just, can we come in? No, I didn't flinch. You've been in enough places you never belonged. The words landed and for once Jason had no comeback. Lily's eyes filled, her lip trembling like the performance of a lifetime. I stepped into the doorway, blocking it with my body. Say what you came to say. Then leave. Jason's jaw flexed. He looked at me like he used to when I refused curfew, angry, paternal, certain he knew best. It was a mistake. No, I said, calm as glass. It was a choice. We didn't plan it, Lily blurted, wringing her hands. We didn't mean for it to happen. And yet it happened, I said. In a house I paid for. On a trip I begged him to take. With a girl I thought was my sister in everything but blood. Lily swallowed hard. Jason shifted his weight. Their silence spoke louder than anything. Do you know what hurts most? I asked. Not the act itself, though God, that's enough. What guts me is that you both thought my love was cheap. That I would keep buying the version of family you were selling me. Jason, you knew I'd cover the bills just so you'd show up. And Lily, you knew I'd trust you anywhere, even beside my brother. And you both cashed that in for one night. Jason broke first. You're twisting it. No, I cut him off. I'm untwisting it. I'm seeing it straight for the first time. He stiffened. Lily looked at the floor. I can't stop you from lying to yourselves, I continued. But don't you dare stand here and ask me to make room for your lies in my house, in my life, in my healing. You forfeited that right. For a moment, the hallway was silent but for Lily's shaky breath. Then Jason stepped forward. We're still family. Nothing changes that. Something in me snapped, but not in the way it used to. Tears, pleading, bargaining. This time it snapped clean like a bone that sets itself straighter after the break. Family, I repeated. Family doesn't use grief like currency. Family doesn't take the one person you lean on and sell them out in the dark. Family doesn't demand forgiveness like it's a paycheck they're owed. Jason's face tightened. So what, you're cutting us off forever? Yes, I said simply. That's exactly what I'm doing. Lily looked up then, her face blotchy, her hands trembling. Claudia, please. I love you. I still love you. The words almost made me laugh. You loved me. You loved me so much you climbed into my brother's bed the second the lights went low? That's not love. That's selfishness dressed in borrowed clothes. She sobbed, covering her mouth. Jason glared at me like I was cruel, like I was the executioner instead of the victim. Get out, I said, pointing down the hall. Both of you. Jason bristled. This is ridiculous. No, I said. This is survival. Mine. Lily tried one last time. What can we do? Please just tell us what to do. Leave me alone, I said. That's the only thing you can do. They stared at me. Two people who once defined my world, now reduced to strangers I wouldn't have let past the front desk of my heart. When they realized I wasn't moving, they turned. Jason muttered something under his breath. Lily's shoulders shook. Together they walked down the hallway, smaller with every step. I closed the door. This time I locked it. I leaned against it, breath shaking, heart pounding. For the first time since that night at the cabin, I felt the tiniest flicker of relief. Not joy, not peace, but relief. I had drawn a line. I had defended it. I had spoken out loud the things I used to only whisper to myself. And in that moment I knew, this wasn't the end of the story. They thought betrayal was the climax. They were wrong. It was only the beginning of mine. They thought I'd fall apart without them. Instead, I discovered how quiet life feels when betrayal finally leaves the room. The days after I shut the door on Jason and Lily were strangely still. Not painless, not easy, but quiet in a way I hadn't felt in years. I went to work without checking my phone every hour for Jason's excuses. I walked through grocery aisles without remembering Lily laughing beside me. At night, the silence of my apartment wasn't heavy anymore. It was mine. They tried, of course. Jason called less, but when he did, it was sharp. You're being dramatic, Claudia. Lily's text shrank from paragraphs to single words. Please. Forgive. Miss you. Eventually, even those stopped. And that was when it hit me, without me they had nothing binding them together. I had been the glue. The one paying, the one begging, the one believing. Without me their so-called bond crumbled fast. One evening I sat at a cafe with my notebook. The same one where I'd written, "You don't get to define me." I watched couples talk, families share dessert, strangers pass sugar across tables. Life kept moving, full of connections that hadn't betrayed me. For the first time I let myself smile. Jason once told me I needed him to survive. Lily once said she couldn't imagine life without me. Both of them were wrong. I wasn't broken. I was becoming whole, on my own. And somewhere out there I knew they were realizing it too. I wasn't the one who lost everything. They were. They broke my trust in secret. I broke their illusion in the open. It happened at a family gathering, one of those rare dinners where distant cousins, uncles, and neighbors filled a rented hall. The kind of night where everyone smiled too much, where the past felt like it still lived in the air. Jason walked in late as always. Lily trailed behind him, quieter, hiding behind the crowd. The sight of them still burned, but I no longer shook. I was steady now, anchored by something they couldn't take. Clarity. People laughed, toasted, clinked glasses. They asked Jason how work was, complimented Lily's dress. And for a moment, it was as if nothing had happened, as if I was the only one who knew. But I did know. And silence had carried me as far as it could. I rose, glass in hand, and cleared my throat. I want to make a toast. The chatter stilled. Eyes turned to me. Jason froze with his fork halfway to his mouth. Lily's knuckles whitened around her napkin. I smiled, not cruel, not shaky. Just calm. This year has taught me what family really means. It taught me that blood doesn't always equal loyalty. And that the people you trust most can sometimes be the first to cut you open. A ripple moved through the room. My aunt tilted her head. Jason's eyes narrowed. I continued, steady as stone. For those of you who don't know, I invited my brother Jason on a family vacation this summer. I begged him to come because I missed him. Because since we lost our parents, I thought holding on to him meant holding on to them. And I even paid for everything just so we could be together. But instead of being there for me, Jason decided my best friend would be better company. In his bed. Gasps. Forks clattered. All around me, mouths fell open. Jason shot to his feet. Claudia, that's enough. No, I said, my voice ringing. It's finally just enough. You slept with the girl you knew was like a sister to me, Jason. And Lily, I turned to her, my voice softening to a razor's edge. You smiled in my face while sneaking behind my back. You both betrayed not just me but the family who believed you were better than this. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was thick, charged, alive. My uncle muttered, "Is this true?" Others stared at Jason, at Lily. Their faces said everything I didn't need to: shame, disgust, disappointment. Jason's face flushed dark. He tried to speak but the words failed. Lily broke first, covering her face as tears slid down. I placed my glass down, my hands steady. I don't share this to shame myself. I share it so everyone here knows where I stand. I will not carry their sins in silence anymore. I will not fund them, excuse them, or shield them. They are no longer my family. They are strangers with familiar names. And I am finally free. With that I sat. The room buzzed, fragmented. People whispered. Some glared at Jason, others turned away. Lily fled to the bathroom. Jason stood rigid, fists clenched, his mask of authority cracked in front of everyone. But me. I breathed. Free. For the first time since I was 15, I wasn't begging my brother to stay. I wasn't clinging to a friend who would walk away. I wasn't holding together a picture of family that never truly existed. I was mine. And as I lifted my glass again and sipped, the taste was sharper, cleaner, and more powerful than any toast I'd ever made. Because the last word was mine.